Hello, you're welcome. You're welcome onto my channel today, and it gives me great joy to observe you are viewing this video. I'm Professor Olayinka Akole. I'm a lecturer in the university. On this channel, I do a number of stuff, but all I do, you can easily cluster them into four: research, sociology, international migration, and relationship. The video you are viewing today is on research. Meanwhile, if you have not subscribed to this channel, kindly go ahead and click subscribe on your screen right now to join my family of subscribers. And also, more importantly, you might be alerted every time I drop new video that may be of use to you. Unobtrusive research design or research method. This is a type of research method that the researcher does not have to have any direct or physical contact with the participants or the subjects or the people being studied. We call it unobtrusive research method because you do not obstruct anything. You do not invade anybody's privacy. You do not have physical contact or direct contact with the people you are studying, because this is the most important point I want you to note. Because you do not want to affect their normal ways of life. You do not want to make them have consciousness that you are studying them, because we believe that once participants are aware that you are studying them, they tend to play to the gallery. They tend to tell you sometimes what you want to hear. Sometimes they modify their behaviors from their day-to-day normal, natural, original behavior. And we believe this affects the quality of data. Sometimes we believe you may want to use unobtrusive research method so that you do not tamper. You protect the originality of their ways of life so that you can get reliable data. Sometimes based on the assumption that once participants are aware that you are studying them, they may condition what they tell you. They may condition their lifestyle in a way that you observe what I can call fake responses, fake ways of life, fake attitude. Therefore, you have been scammed by the participant. You know, this is why that's why we call social sciences, or that it's difficult for social sciences to be objective, because we study human beings who might be aware and they pretend part-time. Unlike natural sciences. Meanwhile, I have a video on this channel on to what extent is sociology a science, sociology as a science, or social sciences as science. To what extent, when you study human beings, to what extent can you be scientific? Because you are not studying inanimate objects. Human beings have the capacity to alter their behaviors per time, depending on the situation they are dealing with per time. So this is why, to be able to get very reliable, very original, very dependable, very valid, very reliable data, that's why sometimes we use unobtrusive research method. So we also call it non-reactive research method. Non-reactive research method in a way that you call the process through which you collect your data without expecting reaction from your participant. They don't have to react to you. You don't need their reaction because they're not even aware most of the time. So, and you try not to affect, their daily activity per day. So you avoid potential bias. So the reason, one of the major reasons you want to avoid potential bias. You don't want the awareness that you are studying them to make you to be biased. So you don't have what we call researcher effect. Researcher effect is a situation whereby, because the researcher is involved at that point in time, and the respondents or the interviewees or participants being studied are aware, so they adjust their responses, they adjust their daily life in a way that the researcher may not be aware, or that may affect the quality of data the researcher is gathering. That's why we call it researcher effect. That the presence of the researcher, the direct interaction of the researcher with the respondent or interviewees is having an effect on the quality of the data. So in unobtrusive research method, there is no alteration in the behavior of the participant. Their behavior is not altered. So it's very useful in qualitative and quantitative data collection. You can use it in both, and you can use it where interaction is difficult, where having direct contact, direct interaction with the participant is difficult. So you just use the one you would not even have direct contact, because when you want to study people, category of people that we call hard to reach, we have what we call hard to reach. When you are studying people that you cannot easily access, for example, you want to study prisoners and you don't have access to the prison for security reasons, or you want to study crime and you don't have access to the criminals, or you want to study some things that are very difficult, or you want to study gangsters, or you want to study people in remote environments, or when you cannot easily reach the people you can talk to. So unobtrusive research method is highly recommended. And when you want to protect the integrity of your data, it's just very, very relevant. So major characteristics of this unobtrusive research method is the situation where there is no interference, no influence of the researcher or the research on the day-to-day behavior of the people. So no interference is one reason we call it unobtrusive research method. Also, it enables you to practice what we call detachment. I have a video on detachment on this channel where you're able to detach yourself from the setting and the people that you are studying. And there are many sources of data for unobtrusive research method. So what are the sources of data for when you are using non-obtrusive research method? We usually use secondary data when we are using unobtrusive research method, because you don't have the luxury or the opportunity to interact with the people you are studying directly. So you simply rely on secondary data. Data that have been secondary data can be regarded as data gathered for a different purpose. It's been gathered by a different set of people for different purpose or identical purpose, and you want to use it because you are not gathering it directly yourself. That's what we call it, is secondary data. The one you gather yourself is what we call primary data. So you use secondary sources. Data that have been collected before for different reasons by different people, or for the same reason or identical reason by different people. So, but you may want to rely on it because of the relevance to what you are using, what you are doing. Then you can use physical tracing or physical traces, in which case you can use, maybe depending on what you are doing. If you are doing a criminological study or social deviant behavior study, you can use maybe fingerprint or what materials are being used by the people. Then you can use existing documents, maybe literature, maybe published articles in journals, books, unclassified or even classified documents, depending on access that you have and the level of clearance that you have. Or you can use, secondly, open source data, or you can also use data that may not be open source, but you can have access to maybe from the central bank, maybe from WHO, World Health Organization, United Nations organizations, United Nations, or UNICEF and the rest of them. By this reliable, important point, the source of the data must be reliable and very dependable. Then you can also use observational data. Don't forget, we have two different types of observation. Meanwhile, we have a video on observation method on this channel. So you can have participant observation where you have direct contact. That is not relevant in unobtrusive research method. If you want to use observation method, then you have to use covert. Covert, not overt. Overt is when they know you are observing them, but in this case, you want to use unobtrusive research method. So you use covert. Covert observation is when the people you are observing do not know, because you don't want to tamper with them. You want to get accurate data with high level of integrity. You can use observation method where you do covert, that is non-participant observation. Then you can use online data. Online sources now in the age of internet. You can use social media data where you do what we call social media mining. You follow the conversation online and you gather data online through social media. Social media is increasingly being used now as unobtrusive method in research. Then you can use ethnography, you can use archival or historical method. You can go to archive. I have data, I have video on archival method on this channel. View the video on archival method. So you can go to the archive to get historical data that are relevant. And don't forget I mentioned secondary data, which can use physical traces, existing documents, observation data, which can be to be covert, can use online data like social media data, social media mining, ethnography. You can also do an ethnography on the internet. We call it nethnography. Nethnography. I have a video on ethnography as a research design on this channel. So you can do ethnography, you can do physical. But when you go online to do ethnography, we call it nethnography. Note that is very important. They can use archival materials. So archival materials from the archive for historical data. So these are sources of data you can use. You can use books generally. I've done this before, using books to bring data from books. Can be storybook, can be fiction, can be science book, can be textbook, so far it has content that you want. Then how do you analyze data you gather from unobtrusive research method? You can do, if it's quantitative, whereby you can host a questionnaire online and simply send link to the questionnaire to people, to fill. So that's an unobtrusive method, because I said you can use it in quantitative method. So you can just simply host it online, can be through ODK, can just be simple link. I don't want to mention too many softwares. I'm not paid for hard parts, but you can use so many of them. You can use SurveyMonkey, you can use simple, Google Form, or you can use ODK, different many of them, and just host it online and send a link to people without having direct contact. Unlike when you do researcher administered questionnaire, when you do face-to-face yourself. Don't forget you want to use unobtrusive, so you don't want to have direct contact. So just send a link to them, they complete it and they submit online, and so you can use different software, Stata, SPSS, Excel, simple Word can also do analysis for you, and many other. Then you analyze your data quantitatively, and you can also do content analysis, especially when you do documents. You get data from documents or books or newspapers or online, and do content analysis or thematic analysis. I have video on content analysis and thematic analysis on this channel. So unobtrusive research methods, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Number one is advantages that it allows you to have data with high level of integrity without reactive. It's not reactive. People or the participant don't have to react to you, so you don't have researcher effect. So it can be high level of integrity because there is no reactivity. And then it's very cost effective because you don't have to be going all the time to the field, recruiting research assistants. You simply use existing data, so it's cost effective. It's also fast because the data is already there. You just go and mine it, or you just go and access it. Sometimes it's already online. You just pick it, so it can be fast, can be cheap, that cost effective, and it can be high level of, can be full of integrity because there's no reaction, there's no high table effect, there's no researcher effect, and also it's good for hard to reach population, people you cannot easily access. Instead of you saying, well, I don't have participants, I cannot continue with this research. No, you simply use unobtrusive research method. So it's good for hard to reach population, and you get the data, and it can be very objective because there's no direct contact. People are not reacting to you based on your presence, just to tell you what you want to hear. So you have objective data analysis, but it also has its own disadvantages. What are they? You have limited control over the quality of the data sometimes, because if you are interviewing somebody one-on-one, you can probe the person. Once you probe the individual, once somebody tells you something, you can probe, that is, ask more questions until you get to the truth. You can even have check for internal consistencies. You can have check questions to probe. So you have control over the data. And it enables to have, it won't allow you to have original data because you are not gathering data yourself. The data may not be suitable ultimately, extensively for you, because you're not the one that gathered the data. You did not design your questionnaire. You did not design your interview guide or discussion guide. So you're just going to get the data that you have, not the one you want. So it has limited opportunity for you to probe, and you have limited control over the data. And you can have potential bias at the same time because you didn't talk to people. You did not have direct contact to observe non-verbal communication, to ask questions over and over again. So you might just get whatever you have in secondary sources, and you just base your opinion on a people you did not interact with. So that in itself can be biased, because it will be better for you to hear from them and form an impression based on what they tell you and your own analysis as a scientist, as a researcher. So you may bias based on secondary sources, secondary data, because you did not interact. And so it has limited for your data to be limited opportunity for original data. Your data cannot be original because you did not gather it yourself. You gather it yourself, then it has more capacity to be original. They can have ethical problems, because when you report on people you did not interview or study, so how do you get what we call informed consent? You will not have informed consent from these people, which is an ethical problem. All researchers must have informed consent or ethical consideration. So if you don't have informed consent from them, especially if you observe them, in a covert way, you did not get consent from them, yet you want to report on them. So that in itself is an ethical dilemma, ethical problem that you may have to explain in your report. So it has ethical problems to that extent. Then, because you don't have the consent of the people, you don't have their approval, and you need to have approval of the people before you report on them or gather data on them. So these are the advice. So in this video, I've told you what unobtrusive research method is, why is it important, and what are the characteristics, and what are the sources of data, then how do you analyze it, and what are the advantages and disadvantages. I've used this a lot, a number of times in my researches and publications, and I've found it very useful. But what is important is that you must know why you want to use a research design per time or a research method per time. Answer the question, why is this the best method for me, is very important. You must know why. That's when you can use it effectively. Till I see you in my next video, kindly click subscribe, and bye for now.